A powerful storm is quietly brewing on the African continent. And at the eye of this storm stands a man once dismissed as just another former leader, now rising as a symbol of defiance and African self-determination. President John Dramani Mahama. In what many now see as a direct challenge to the entrenched architecture of neocolonialism, President Mahama has boldly called for Africa to unashamedly take advantage of the natural resources God has endowed it with. But this statement is not just policy, it is provocation. And it has already triggered tremors in the boardrooms of Western powers, particularly the United States of America. President Mahama's statement wasn't uttered in a vacuum. It came at a time when Africa stands at a crossroads. Do we continue to allow our gold, oil, timber, lithium, cocoa, and bauxite to be extracted by foreign entities under contracts signed in secrecy, often negotiated by agents of those very interests? Or do we rise, take ownership, and redirect the wealth of this land into the hands of its rightful owners, Africans?
And of course, the last thing I want to say before I inflict my speech on you is the issue of leveraging our comparative advantages. The time has come for Africa to unashamedly take advantage of the natural resource endowment that God has given us. In the colonial era, we had colonial masters, we had no say, and so they mined the gold, they took it away, they developed the palm plantations, took the palm oil away, they took the diamonds away, took everything away. And when we gained independence, Nkrumah warned us and said colonialism might have been defeated, but we're entering the era of neocolonialism. They don't need to bring a governor to sit here, but they still would, from wherever the colonial headquarters is at, control your resources and be able to still derive the benefits as if they had colonized you. And that exactly is happening. Post-colonialism, we didn't have technology, we didn't have capital, we didn't have the human resource. And so foreign companies come and take huge concessions and they sign it off for a pittance. And they run those, concessions to the benefit of the colonial metropolis. Today, I think that in Africa, we've developed the core of human resource that is capable of also taking advantage of some of these resources. We've developed the technology, we have the technology to be able to do whatever any of these big conglomerates are doing. And the capital is available in the world to mobilize, to be able to do the same things. And that is why recently we had a little issue which we have resolved with one of our mining companies whose lease had expired after 30 years. And it was our desire to take it over and use Ghanaian expertise to be able to also exploit that resource and let the benefits remain in our country.
According to Mahama, this is not just an economic agenda, it is a moral imperative. For too long, Africa has been robbed by colonialists who carried crosses in one hand and chains in the other, and now by corporations that hide behind development agencies and NGOs, wearing the polished mask of partnership while orchestrating modern resource looting. What Mahama said next cut deeper into the heart of the imperial system than many expected. Africa now possesses the requisite human capital, technology, and access to capital to manage and benefit from its resources effectively. With that one line, he demolished the very lie that Western dominance over Africa rests upon, the idea that Africans are incapable of managing their own resources without Western oversight. This speech, calm in delivery, but thunderous in its implications, did not go unnoticed. Within days, Western diplomatic circles began rumbling. International media, particularly those subtly aligned with US and European interests, began crafting subtle narratives to undermine the momentum that was beginning to build. Because make no mistake, Mahama's call wasn't simply about Ghana, it was about all of Africa. And in that, the West heard the echoes of a name they thought they had silenced: Thomas Sankara. The ghost of Sankara now whispers again through the policies of Burkina Faso's president, Ibrahim Traoré. And with Mahama openly shaking hands and expressing solidarity with Traoré during his swearing-in, the writing is on the wall. The alliance is growing, and it's making Western powers nervous. And then the retaliation came, not through an open declaration, but through a strategy as old as colonialism itself: fear. In an act that many now interpret as a subtle punishment and warning shot, the US Department of State released an updated travel advisory for Ghana. But this wasn't just a routine advisory. It was a surgical narrative attack. According to the latest update from the US Department of State's Bureau of Consular Affairs, travelers are advised to exercise increased caution when visiting Ghana due to heightened concerns over crime, particularly targeting women and LGBTQ+ individuals. The advisory specifically warns against travel to the Upper East, Northeast, Upper West, and the western portion of the Savannah region, especially areas bordering Burkina Faso and Côte d'Ivoire, citing civil unrest and criminal activity. The bulletin outlines risks such as violent crimes including carjackings, street muggings, assaults and rape, often occurring at night and in isolated locations. It also highlights underreported sexual assaults and a weak police response to domestic violence. Travelers are warned to avoid public and private transportation after dark, as criminal elements are known to use blockades to slow and ambush vehicles. Urban areas and crowded markets are listed as high-risk zones. Additionally, the advisory underscores Ghana's criminalization of unnatural carnal knowledge, interpreted as same-sex intimacy, with penalties including imprisonment. Rhetoric and violence against LGBTQ+ persons, including mob attacks and harassment, have reportedly increased. While these concerns may reflect specific security issues, the timing and tone of the advisory suggest a deeper geopolitical motive. Many observers argue that this travel warning is part of a broader attempt to make Ghana appear unsafe and unstable to foreign investors and tourists. By amplifying isolated incidents and framing the country as high risk, this strategy may aim to discourage investment, reduce tourism, and globally defame Ghana, especially in light of its recent efforts to nationalize gold resources and reduce foreign dependence. The answer is clear to any discerning observer. This is how economic warfare is waged in the 21st century. It's no longer just about bullets and boots. It's about perception, reputation, and pressure. They don't need to invade you if they can make the world fear you. This is the cost of standing for Africa. But Mahama is not standing alone. From business magnates to musicians, a tide of support is rising. Dr. Kofi Amoah, respected entrepreneur and nationalist voice, did not mince words. He applauded the president's stance and called for nationalization of key sectors, arguing that it was time Africa controlled not just the land, but the value that flows from it. We cannot build a prosperous future while giving away the wealth beneath our feet to outsiders, he said. The age of economic colonization must end. Then came Sarkodie, Ghana's globally recognized music icon. Posting Mahama's speech to millions of followers, he simply wrote, "The revolution will be televised." That post went viral. It didn't just reflect entertainment, it reflected consciousness. A new generation is waking up, and they are not afraid. But speeches and support alone are not enough. Mahama knew that, which is why behind the scenes his administration quietly put into motion a plan that could change the very structure of Ghana's gold economy. In an unprecedented move, the Ghana GoldBod announced a binding agreement with 9 large-scale mining companies. These companies, which include names like Golden Team Mining Company Limited, Akroma Gold, Earl International, and Prestea Sankofa, have agreed to sell 20% of their gold output to Ghana. Locally, not to London, not to Dubai, to Ghana. This gold will be delivered as Doré bars directly to the assay laboratory at Kotoka International Airport. And payment? Not in US dollars, but in Ghana cedis. Yes, local currency, sovereignty. This move shocked international observers because it did something few African governments have dared to do. It disrupted the invisible chain linking African wealth to Western stock markets and banks. It asserted, in economic terms, the very independence that so many African countries only hold on paper. The GoldBod's AG CEO, Sami Jamfi, called it a fulfillment of the president's vision, making it clear that this wasn't an isolated bureaucratic decision. It is policy, it is ideology, and it is war, an economic one. The US advisory, then, must be seen in this light. It is not a mere warning. It is a shot across the bow, a way to deter foreign investors, a psychological strike meant to destabilize confidence and create internal doubt. It is the oldest colonial tactic. Isolate the rebel, make him look dangerous, create fear among his allies, then wait for internal collapse. But this is not 1960. The Africa of today is not the Africa of yesterday. There are now independent media outlets, brave voices, and social platforms that allow truth to travel faster than propaganda. And those voices are rising. You see it in the markets of Accra, where traders nod in agreement at Mahama's message. You hear it in the youth-led forums on TikTok and YouTube, where creators dissect the travel advisory and ask, why now? You feel it in the cultural shift, where Ghanaian pride is not just in music and kente, but in economic sovereignty. But this revolution will not be easy. Already, there are whispers of resistance within. Forces aligned with international corporate interests, some within Ghana's own political class, have begun casting doubt. Some call the GoldBod plan unsustainable. Others warn of capital flight or investment withdrawal. These voices, often funded from abroad, mask their sabotage in the language of caution. Yet their fear betrays them, because what they fear most is not economic instability. What they fear is success. They fear what happens if Mahama's plan works. If Ghana begins building refineries, if Ghanaian gold stays in Ghanaian vaults, if Africa begins setting the price rather than accepting it, because then the empire falls. And so the battle has begun, a battle for the soul of Ghana, a battle for Africa's right to decide its destiny. President Mahama has stepped into the arena not as a politician seeking re-election, but as a statesman leading a continental awakening. His alliance with Burkina Faso's Ibrahim Traoré, another thorn in the side of Western dominance, is no coincidence. It is strategy. During Mahama's inauguration, Traoré's presence sent a message louder than any press statement. It was a declaration. We are no longer isolated. We are united. From Ouagadougou to Accra, from the Sahel to the Gulf of Guinea, a new Pan-African coalition is rising, one that no longer waits for permission. But can Mahama withstand the pressure? Can Ghana resist the waves of economic sabotage, international smear campaigns, and internal betrayal that will surely follow? The answer lies not just with him, but with us, because this is no longer just about one man. It is about a continent. It is about the farmer in Brong Ahafo, who wonders why cocoa pays less than coffee in Europe. It is about the miner in Obuasi, who sees gold leave by the plane load while his children attend a leaking school. It is about every African child who asks, if we are so rich, why are we so poor? President Mahama has asked the right question, and now the world is answering with fear. Let that be a sign to us. Because when the oppressor trembles, the oppressed must stand taller. Mahama's speech was not just political rhetoric, it was a declaration of economic war. And the United States response, a travel advisory dripping in fear-mongering, was proof that the battle has begun. What happens next will define not just Ghana, but Africa's next 50 years. So, to those watching from abroad, we say this: the era of exploitation is ending. The sons and daughters of Kwame Nkrumah are awake. The children of Sankara are speaking again. The descendants of Patrice Lumumba are organizing. Africa is not asking for permission anymore. And to Ghanaians, this is your moment. Support the vision. Question the narratives. Stand for your nation. Because if we lose this battle now, it may take another generation to rise again. But if we win, then Ghana will become not just the Black Star of Africa, but the flame that lights the path to continental rebirth. Subscribe to Ghana AI News for more in-depth African-centered analysis, updates, and truth-telling journalism. Share this video. Let the world know Africa is rising, and we will not be silenced.